Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Next, we'll have roll call of the members.
Commissioner Flacco.
Present.
Commissioner Breitling.
Yes.
Commissioner Bettel.
Here.
Commissioner Grinberg.
Here.
Commissioner Capitan.
Here. Taylor, Commissioner Breitling, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, I would. The gentleman that I've asked to appear before us today to lead us into the pledge is born and raised in the Lisbon area, spent 4 years in the Navy, 1 year in Vietnam, and what he describes as the brown water Navy, and I asked him what he meant by that. And he said, well, you patrol the rivers of Vietnam on naval gunships. And that's what he did for a year over in Nam. He's past commander of the VFW for West Fargo. He's the past president of the American Welding Association. He served as president of the North Dakota High School Skills Association. And perhaps the next 2 items, or next 4 items, are the advisor for welding departments of St. Cloud, Minnesota, and Mapleton, North Dakota Technical Schools, and president of the American Welding Association Society. He's been a West Fargo VFW post commander, amongst other state and local offices held. But more importantly, he has served on for 6 years on the Lisbon Veterans Home Foundation. 2 of those years he served as president. He's involved with the Honor Guard with the West Fargo VFW post, and they have performed their services at over 370 funerals. And it's probably more than that because I know of 1 or 2 that have taken place since we last visited. I want to introduce our gentleman by the name of Jim Hoppala as our guest of honor. And Jim, would you approach the podium and lead us into the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jim, we have a little bit of something. Would you present this to Mr. Hoppala for us, please?
Well, Mr. Hoppala, if you'd like to take a moment, any words that would be appropriate as well.
Jim, on behalf of the commission, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I can help you. You guys need something, give me a call, whatever, sometimes I can help you. It's just, I enjoy helping people. I've done that forever, I guess. When my kids got into things, I always wanted that function to keep going, so I helped my kids, and it was just fun working with families. So if I can help you guys with anything, let me know. You can't get a hold of me, Dewey can track me down, so.
Jim and I are early morning friends. I'm walking a dog, and he often wonders, are you walking the dog, or is the dog walking you?
It changes from day to day when I look at it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
You bet.
Thank you for your service, and we're honored with your presence. For those that don't know, each month we start the Pledge of Allegiance with a guest, and today was pretty impactful. We appreciate that. Great record. Thank you. Commissioner Flacco, do you have a word?
I was going to say go Broncos, but seems what a wait now, but okay.
Okay, well, here we go. Next, I'd look for a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries. Next, order of the agenda. What are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next would approve the consent agenda. to your wishes? Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda.
Question,
Commissioner Brightman?
the handout that Taylor provided me does not show who is what for 06 or 26.
I think Commissioner Brightling is asking about the portfolios. It was on the consent agenda, item number 3. Do you want me to print it for you? But that would be approved in the consent agenda items.
That's what we're voting on now.
Yes.
Unless you'd like to pull it and have discussion.
I'd like to see it.
Well, it's years.
So let's entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of boards and committee assignments and chair and vice chair for 26. And we'll place that after approval of the vouchers.
That's fine.
We'll have a printed copy by then.
Moved.
Second. Discussion? Here now we'll take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Capitan?
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg?
Aye.
Commissioner Flacco?
Aye.
Commissioner Brightling?
Yes.
Commissioner Bettel?
Aye.
And before we move then to the regular agenda, Commissioner Breitling, pretty much mirrors what we talked about in our planning meeting after the past meeting. We'll get a copy of it.
Thank you.
Under the regular agenda, item 1, Fargo pilot incentive for Central at the Horizon. Mr. Jim Gilmore.
Thank you. I'll give you a brief summary of this, and then I have 2 people that'll be here virtually. One is Matt Schnacklenberg. He is with PFM. He's the individual who has done the financial review that's in your packet. With a project like this, the city felt it was important to have our third-party consultant take a look at the finances to see if the assistance requested was really needed. Also, we have David with the Annex Group that's the developer of this. First of all, I think this project, does fit your new policy in terms of being supportive of low and moderate income housing projects. I emphasize the word moderate because this isn't like a housing authority project where you're trying to help the extremely low income. This is more that moderate working class or working income. And the sheet I passed out for you, I apologize for the extra sheets in there. There's an operator error on the copier, obviously, with me. But there's the income limits in there. And so you can see there are income limits on this that require people to be at below 60% of median income. Rather than try to explain it, what that means, I've actually got it on the sheet on what those income limits actually are. So depending on the size of your household, you have to be below that income limit to qualify. I also believe that they do accept housing authority vouchers. So if someone has a voucher for rent, that they can use that. I also had Robert send you last week, the state of North Dakota has approved this project for the 4% low-income housing tax credit, so that's an important part of the financing. They've also provided a $3 million housing incentive grant funding. The Housing Finance Agency looks closely at these applications. They look at their market study, they look at their financial review before they make a determination of how much assistance the state provides for it. As I mentioned, city policy with this very complex financing stack, and so we have PFM review that. Probably noted in their report, the key was that the debt coverage ratio on this without any kind of financial assistance is 0.94, and so you're simply not going to get any kind of financing for that. The savings per unit per month per rent is a little over $200, right about $220 a month. So if this project has to pay that full property taxes, it's simply not feasible to serve this income group. Maybe first I'll have David, are you online? Do you want to kind of talk about the project, and then we'll shift to Matt, and he can provide information on that. I think they'll be able to answer most of your questions, but I'd be happy to try to answer any if you have any at this moment.
Questions for Mr. Gilmore? If not, we'll move to the next presenter.
David, are you online?
Yeah, I'm on. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, this is David Western with the Annex Group. Thanks, Jim, for that introduction. I think Jim gave most of the prevalent information, but can give a little bit of additional information. I think in the packet you have in front of you, there's a lot of relevant items. A little bit of background on our group. We are based out of Indianapolis, Indiana. We do low-income housing tax credit projects in over 20 states around the country. This will be our first project in North Dakota. We're really excited to be doing the largest, what we think is the largest urban affordable housing project, fully affordable in the recent past in North Dakota. As you can see in your packet, we're proposing 262 units on an urban infill site in Fargo. The site is available within walking distance as well as transit distance to food, grocery, school, childcare, healthcare amenities. We think it's really important with all of the growth that has happened in downtown Fargo to ensure that there's affordable and low moderate income housing options with a lot of the newer, higher and multi-family as the market, as well as some lower end of the spectrum at 30 to 40% AMI range. We believe the kind of top and bottom end have been addressed well with the market as well as the housing authority projects, but we're hoping to provide some benefit at 60% below area median income level. As Jim mentioned, it's very important for pretty much all of our projects, but this one especially, to be able to have relief on property tax burden. Pretty, as I mentioned, we do projects in over 20 states around the country. Almost all of our projects that we work on receive a high level, if not full, tax exemption as that's necessary for these to be able to financially pencil. I would defer to the third-party financial review that you have in your packets, and Matthew is online to be able to discuss as well. I think that they did an appropriate review of the financials, and that shows the need for this incentive. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions about the project, but we are excited to be working in Fargo, Cass County, and North Dakota, and would love to discuss any questions or comments you have.
Questions from the commission?
If not, maybe we can move on to Matt, if you want to give us a summary of your report.
I think maybe I'll insert a couple questions
Okay,
here from.
sure.
So maybe shed a little light. You detailed total interest and reserve costs at 13.6 million. I presume that's for the 2-year period of commencing construction and completing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And Matt can kind of, I assume you're looking at the project costs tab specifically. Some of those are obviously construction interest, so the interest on the construction loan. Some of that is also some bond amounts that are reinvested into the sources of the project. So as Jim mentioned, there's some complex financial items, and that's the need and the desire to bring on the third-party report. We wanted to make sure it was super clear of kind of the need of all of our costs, as well as some of those costs being reinvested into the sources of the project. But yeah, some of that is construction interest, some of it is our bond proceeds that are reinvested into the sources of the project.
So recognizing the word complex has been used a couple times, what are you using for an interest rate in your calculation?
Yeah, it's not 100% locked in yet, but for our construction loan, we're going to be somewhere around 6.5% is our projection for our construction debt.
And then will you have long-term financing, I presume, and interest costs built into your model?
Yes, correct. And that's part of the DSCR calculation that Jim was referencing. We are expecting about 6.25% permanent loan that will the construction loan convert into, and that's our need to be able to pay off that long-term permanent financing.
So on conception of this agreement, then would that be a locked-in rate, or presumably if the rates go down, you'd have a more attractive, ROI if it was 4.5%, say, 2 years from now?
It'll get locked, the permanent rate will get locked in at our financial closing, which we're projecting for early summer of this upcoming year. So you're right, there could be some movement in interest rates, but we won't be able to take advantage of lower interest rates at conversion to the permanent financing. That rate gets locked in at our commencement of construction. The permanent and construction rate get locked in this time.
Appreciate that. And then two other questions. What comprises sponsor costs at 14.5 million?
Sponsor costs, sorry, which page are you? Oh, that's the developer, sorry, I'm trying to make sure I'm referencing the right place that you're looking at.
You got total uses of 93.7 and two lines
Oh,
up
yeah.
have total sponsor at 14.5.
Yeah, so that is the sponsor costs are the developer fee, a majority of 80% of which will be reinvested into the sources of the project.
Will that be used as equity then in your financing?
Yeah, so the way that the light tech projects work, you are allowed to take a very large developer fee, and that helps increase the tax credits that you're able to use as equity, and then we take a majority of that, up to 80% of that developer fee, and reinvest it into the sources of the project, and then that's paid through cash flow. So it's not extra money that's going to us as a developer, it's just a financing tool to increase the equity that we can put into the project.
Okay, appreciate that. My final question is, I'm sure you've read the press, Mr. Gilmore was quoted in the recent article, that vacancy rates in downtown Fargo are 3x over vacancy rates throughout citywide. Does that have any concern of your long-term projections of if that remains at 3x, what does the future look like if it's 3x for 5 years?
Yeah, obviously we're keeping an eye on downtown Fargo, the rates are. I would point to obviously that Fargo has done a really good job in the urban core of being able to incentivize new market rate projects. And as Jim mentioned, we've done a market study, and all of our rents on average have to be at least 10% below what's considered market at 1, 2, and 3 bedroom rates. So we will ensure, and part of the need to be able to navigate the DSCR and cash flow with taxes is our need to be able to be at least 10%. It's a maximum of 60% AMI rents or 10% discount to market rate. So we believe that the discount market rate will help our vacancy, that we'll be able to have a healthy project in downtown Fargo, and that we will have financial concerns in that regard.
Thank you. Moving on for the next.
Yeah, Matt.
Commissioner Flacco?
Okay.
A couple questions. How would the rent escalation go over the period of 20 years? It starts, we'll say, right now it's listed at one bedroom at $1,170. What determines future rates?
Yeah, so rates are determined by a maximum of the HUD, 60% AMI allowed rents, which are publicly available on the HUD website through a calculator. Basically, it takes the average median income, multiplies that by 60%, so that's someone that makes 60% per household, and then the rent is based on 30% of that income, so it's considered housing burden. So 30% of 60% of the area median income. So that's the calculation. Actually, it's interesting. This the application that was filled out, these rental rates, was based on the 2025 area median incomes. We have projections now for 2026 that came out since this application came in, and it's projected that Fargo area median incomes are going to be reduced by 0.5% in 2026. So these rents will actually be reduced by 0.5%. So we cannot increase by more than whatever the area median income increases, and if the area median income decreases, then you're required to decrease our maximum limits. So that's the baseline. Beyond that, we will always, as I mentioned earlier, maintain our rents at 10% discount to what's considered market rent for the area. So whatever is the lower of 10% discount in the market or the 60% area median income.
What's your threshold for, filling capacity? What's kind of your realistic goal here? 90, 85?
We're required by our financial partners to underwrite a 7% vacancy amount, so our goal will be, obviously, we want to fill the whole project, but stabilize for us is at 93% occupancy.
And to shift gears a little bit, and I don't have the page number, I don't see any page numbers on this, but I know the city committee earlier had some questions about this, one that our administrator serves on, about the detailed assumptions about any other revenues, X number of dollars per year is what it's listed as, initial pet fees, monthly pet fees, application fees. And that comes to, they're not all going to have these, of course, but it's like $2,010 or $167 a month. So it prompts my question, which I didn't see, but it was referenced up above on the header. Parking, is that included in the base price?
Yes, parking will be included in rent for the project.
Okay.
And then that'll be allocated at a first come, first serve, that one spot per unit until it's full, and then if not every, if they're not all full, then we would loop back around and reallocate based on first pieces that come in.
And then someone asked me to ask you, tax breaks, does that apply also to the fitness center, the indoor play area, and the bark park for dogs?
If the tax, sorry, can you reiterate?
Does the pilot include those?
Yes, so we will not be receiving any income for those amenities that are associated and affiliated with the residential part of the project. So yes, the whole project would apply under pilot because those are considered residential amenities, not commercial spaces.
Yeah, I wasn't implying that you were getting money out of it. I just wanted to make sure that was, because it's in the value of said property. So do we know, and I'm not sure who this is a question for, Jim, Matt, Dave, I don't know, of the 390 units that are open now, do we know any kind of profile of low income, medium, or above medium?
As far as the vacant units in downtown?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's about 2,000 units that were surveyed in that, and, the vacancy rate is probably 10% higher than the typical rate in town. So there's probably 200 units downtown that are, vacant and that they're trying to rent. I know, just anecdotally, some of those are fairly high income. Some of those are buildings that are struggling because of the number of, people downtown that are heckling people. I know of one building that's about half vacant that was full several years ago. And so we've got a real problem downtown in terms of perception of crime. And I think the city needs to work to address that in order to get this vacancy rate up too. So some of it's market absorption, some of it's kind of the what the downtown's like now. I do want to address one thing with the property tax and point out that when a building like this is being constructed, so they'll start next year, and the city assessor will come out February 1 and look at this building, and also February 1 of 2008. So there'll be 2 years there where they'll be paying property taxes because the exemption doesn't start until they're done and open sometime in 2008. So you'll see some short-term property tax benefit in these first 2 years, and then before these exemptions begin. So that is one benefit short-term for the county and the city and the schools. Matt, do you want to talk about your report?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So, I'm Matt Schneckberg. I'm a managing director with PFM Financial Advisors down in Minneapolis. Thanks for having me this afternoon. I'll just run through my report real quickly. What kind of high level is I take a look at the application that the applicant prepares, including any pro forma, any kind of detailed assumptions that went into that pro forma. I usually have a conversation with the developer, as I did this time with David, to kind of get clarity on any questions I have, any assumptions that they made. But then I do put together my own pro forma based on what I believe to be reasonable assumptions if they are different than the developer. In this case, they were generally the same assumptions that I made, that the developer made. And then I run a couple scenarios, and so I look at the development with and without the public incentive or the public assistance. And so I'll just run through the report here, just going over the project financing we talked about. In this case, this is a little bit different than the typical kind of for-profit developer coming in for market rate housing. Since this is a low income, and they have the low income tax credits, we included that as the equity into this project. You also have the deferred developer fee, and then a large portion of it is going to be a loan. We're looking at about $39 million senior loan, and then a small $3 million subordinate loan with a low interest rate, estimated at 2%. When we were looking at this, we were assuming a 6.1% interest rate for the permanent financing. And then what we do is we look at the rents, we look at the assumptions that go into the expenses. We want to make sure that expenses aren't being overinflated to make the projects appear to need public assistance. In this case, the operating expenses were around 38% of gross operating income, which is, I would say, kind of on the lower end of the range that I typically see. So that's good estimates here, good assumptions here. Then I look at the pro formas. I look at it again with and without the public assistance, and I'm looking at two basic metrics really for this project. I was looking at one basic financial metric, and that is the debt service coverage ratio. And so typically banks want to see a minimum of 1.2 times coverage on the debt. And so looking at this without public assistance, we're looking at under a 1 times coverage, meaning they could not make their payments after paying their operating expenses. And then with public assistance, we're looking at looking at year 10, 1.28 times, which is certainly reasonable for something like this, and would be more than likely necessary from a bank compliance perspective. And then I run a few sensitivity scenarios. Kind of what happens if project costs come in lower than expected, but still bring in the same amount of revenues? What happens if minor rates actually increase above what we're projected in here? And then kind of looking at a combination of the two. And in all three sensitivity scenarios, I would say we're unlikely, especially the rate, the rental rate scenario, as David explained, what their commitment is holding those rates within a certain amount. So happy to answer any questions that you may have on our report.
Questions? Jim, any final comments?
No, I guess just I feel this meets your policy in supporting low and moderate income housing projects, and so I hope that you would support this. The Fargo City Commission will review this in, I believe, 3 weeks, and we haven't heard back one way or the other from the school district.
Yeah, I do know the school district's evaluating the potential incentives policy, I think. Whether they have that done or not, I guess that remains to be seen. Mr. Capitan?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, while I think this is a very good project, and I've been in support of everything Jim has brought before us in the past, but now he's coming with another 15 years of a pilot program and 5 years of Renaissance Zone, and that counts for about $114,000 a year lost to the county in over 20 years. That comes up to about $2.3 million. We get saddled with a 3% cap every year from the county, and that's not going to go away anytime soon. I can't see myself voting for a 20-year pilot program.
Other comments from the commission? Are there any motions?
I'd like to see him go back and take a look at this and come down to 7 to 10 years. With that, I move that we disapprove of this.
Second? Discussion? I guess where I'm at, Jimmy and I had a brief conversation, and when we went through this process of identifying and adopting a new policy, in my mind, I had 17 years based on prior actions we've made to support projects that are largely under the federal tax credit. There was a magic number by investors, which we've had people present here on that fact. And so I struggle with coming in, stacking 5, which we have no decision-making on. It is what it is. It's your guys' call, and we support downtown growth. But then stacking 15 years on top of that.
I guess maybe that's a question for the developer, David. Would 5 plus 12 work for your financial model if the county didn't participate and beyond?
Well, we're not going to get into that here. Now we have a motion and a second. So
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to act on the motion in the second. So doesn't mean in the future, wherever this ends up, doesn't mean there's other opportunities. But any other comments? Commissioner Battle?
Like clarity on the motion.
The motion is to deny the request. Further comments?
Hopefully they can go back and do some refiguring, but 20 years is, in my mind, is completely out of the question.
Any other comments? Once Taylor's done typing, then we'll take the roll.
Commissioner Capitan?
Aye votes for the motion to deny. A no vote votes the other way. Just to clarify.
Aye.
Commissioner Breitling?
Aye.
Commissioner Bettel?
Aye.
Commissioner Flacco?
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg?
Aye. Go to number 2. Maple River Cuyuna Transmission Project. Mr. Craig Steingard, welcome back.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. First of all, thank you very much for having me here today to give you guys basically an introduction to the Maple River to Cuyuna project, as well as kind of a update on where we are at right now and where we're going to be going to. Just in the interest of time, I will try and keep this to about as close to 10 minutes as I can, so might skip around a little bit, but we'll get there. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Craig Steingard. I work for Ottertail Power Company. I also have along with me today Kevin Blumhart. He is in our land rights department as well, also works for Ottertail Power Company. If there's any questions that I can't answer about land rights, he's going to be who I refer to on that. Other than that, just to give you kind of an about the project, so this is a co-owned project with two other owners, so Ottertail Power Company, Minnesota Power, as well as Great River Energy. The line that is being proposed is approximately 160 miles long, kind of depending on where we end up in terms of weaving in and out of landowners, DNR, all of their agencies that get their fingers into that opinion. This is a single circuit 345 kilovolt line. It would be very similar to the one that you see on I-94 in terms of the structure. This is a double circuit capable structure, just like that one as well, but the difference between this line compared to that one would be that we would actually string both circuits up, but it would be only operated as a single circuit until later on in the future that they decide that it's necessary to operate it as a double circuit. In terms of endpoints as well, so we are looking at Maple River Substation just outside of Riley's Acres. So if you are on the Riley's Acres, it's right on the southwest corner there. And this is going all the way to a substation where they call Cuyuna. It's Cuyuna State Forest out in Minnesota. There's a substation being built right now that this line is going to connect to. One question that does come up quite often is this line two-way? Yes, it is. So as far as where the power is going, it's either going into Minnesota or coming back to North Dakota. It just depends on where it's needed. So project need, there's really 4 areas of concern here as far as what the project is for. Number 1 is enhancing reliability of the regional transmission system. That includes quite a few different states. We are part of what is called the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, or MISO for short. So if you hear me say MISO, that's what I'm referring to. But they have a pretty large footprint, 15 states, as well as a province up in Canada too. So we're part of that. Number 2, we have increase in system capacity and reliability through extreme weather events. So in terms of capacity on the entire grid, that's what they're really referring to, is making sure that we can get bulk transfers of power from where it's generated over to where the power is needed. Number 3, meeting a growing demand or a growing electrical demand here and enhance resiliency, and enabling cost-effective regional energy transporters supporting economic grid operation. I had mentioned MISO before. This is kind of just giving you a brief overlook as far as a little bit farther out. So if you look at the top there, you will see a circled line. That is the Maple River to Cuyuna 345 that we were talking about today. But you can also see many other projects that are going on. These are all part of a portfolio called Tranche 2.1 that was approved in MTEP 2024, which is a report that MISO does not every year necessarily, but the last one was December of 2024. If you do notice on this map, you're going to see a couple of different colors as well, so red and green. Red is signifying 345 kilovolt lines that are being built on this tranche, and then there's also green, which is 765, so a lot of projects. As I mentioned before, approximately 160 miles of new single circuit 345. The next big thing to remember is that we're upgrading the Maple River substation as well, so there's a couple of upgrades that have to be done in order to accommodate a new 345 going into that substation, as well as I mentioned the brand new sub that's being built in Cuyuna, Minnesota right now. So a brief timeline for you guys. So right now in 2025, we've been really solely focused on really routing as well as stakeholder engagement. In June of 2025, we had our first round of open houses that allowed the public to come into those and give us essentially feedback, comments, really any items that they would either have concern of, or if there's a piece of property that might be touching the line, that they have the opportunity to speak with us. And then in 2026, going through 2028, we're going to be really focused on permitting, engineering, environmental surveys, right-of-way, things of that nature. 2029 to 2032, we're gonna be looking at construction with an in-service date of 2033. The months could shift a little bit, but the years should generally be the same coming up here, so. To give you an idea of where we started at, so there's an initial study area that was proposed in June, and that was presented at our public open houses. And these were really focused on what we call high voltage transmission corridors, essentially. So when you're looking at this map, you'll notice there's a grayed out area, and then we have the blue shades. Those blue shaded corridors are high voltage transmission lines that already exist that are 115 kV or higher. In the state of Minnesota, there has been a drive, at least from the Minnesota Public Utility Commission, to do what they have call co-location, essentially. So they would like to see 80% or more in the state of Minnesota, specifically co-locating on an existing corridor already. And in North Dakota, we don't really have that requirement. The biggest concern that we have on the North Dakota side is how to get from our substation over across the river. So we weren't as focused on the high voltage lines as Minnesota would be, so. But with that said, North Dakota is really only going to encompass anywhere from 8 to 10 miles in comparison to 150 on the Minnesota side. So, give you an idea as well as what we're actually moving to, or what we moved to in our October open houses. You can see there's a difference in the blue shaded area there. What we've heard, adjacency to proposed or existing projects, existing transmission lines that are already on property, public lands, population proximity, cultural resources as well. And that's where we end up right now, where in October we had our second round of open houses. Again, same idea as the June, but then we also reduced the corridors down to what you see here. The idea would be to have one more open house in the Minnesota side that would reduce this actually much more. So you would be looking at probably 1 or 2 corridors that they're going to actually show, and potentially even having a preferred route ready to show the public at that time. But that's really what we're building to in the next few months, is how do we get to our next step of showing that preferred route on a map. In North Dakota, the process is a little bit different. Generally in North Dakota, we have a lot more landowner acquisition that happens much earlier on than in the Minnesota process. They start the regulatory side more, where we're working towards getting right of entry, right of way options out to, or option negotiations done with landowners much sooner to show the Public Service Commission here in North Dakota that we have landowner buy-in essentially on the line. So, just a quick North Dakota permitting process. So we do have to focus primarily on 2 different applications, along with coordination with township and counties, excuse me. Number 1, as far as the applications go, we have the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. That application is being worked on right now for the North Dakota side. We believe that would be filed in Q1 of 2026. I believe at the end of January or early February is what they are targeting to get that application filed by. The second application is what's called a Certificate of Corridor Compatibility and Route Permit. Those are technically 2 separate applications, but we consolidate ours. That one would be filed later in 2026, I believe anywhere from August to September of that time, unless there's any adjustments that need to be made. But those are the 2 main regulatory filings that have to be completed for us to be able to build a line here in North Dakota. Minnesota process, a little bit similar in terms of the applications that they have. Certificate of Need is essentially CPCN, or the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. And then they also have their route permit as well. So there is 2 very similar applications between the 2 states. How you get to those are a little bit different, just with the philosophies in both states. So. Routing process, we are still in development as far as preliminary routes go. As I had mentioned, they are hoping in Minnesota to be able to get to a point of showing a line to the public at their next open house. In North Dakota, we are just working through with landowners right now. The landowners really drive the routing process pretty heavily. Generally, we're looking at trying to get 70% or higher. At least that's what the North Dakota PSC has kind of. It's not in the century code, but that's what they have a preference towards getting to 70% acquisition done by the time we get the route permit filed. So we're hoping by Q3 of 2026 that that's where we're at, and we can file a route permit in North Dakota. Some considerations for Minnesota, North Dakota. A lot of the time we're going to be looking at airports, DNR lands, wildlife management areas, farmland, anything that could constrain us is something that we need to know about. Primarily, that's what we're focused on right now with the public engagement that we're doing. There's also the engineering and construction considerations that we have to go into too. If we run into, an example would be Fargo Airport, if there's a reason that we'd have to have lower towers or higher towers or special lights or anything of that nature, those are being considered as well along as we go through the routing process. Some anticipated studies. So there's geotechnical studies that are done, cultural resources, wetland and water bodies, invasive species, protected species, and raptor nests. Some idea of the typical design. I had already mentioned the line that's following I-94. This would be a very similar structure. One of the main differences that you'll notice is that this structure is brown. The line that's on I-94 there is actually galvanized steel. They would use a different coating that's actually on these, so you would see brown poles instead of silver poles. The minimum right-of-way that is needed is 150 feet. Average structure per mile is 5 to 7, and we also have a typical height of 120 to 180 feet. In comparison to, let's say, an existing 230, anywhere in the 85 or 65 to 90 foot range, you can kind of see the difference there on height. The other thing to consider here is if we're considering co-location, we would generally try to overlap the current right-of-way. So if there's an existing right-of-way of 130 feet, generally we would try to, if we're going to co-locate next to that line, overlap anywhere from 30 to 40 feet, so it's not affecting as much land on either end or either side of the line. With that said, again, North Dakota is only going to be about 6 to 8 miles, and there's not a huge amount of co-location that could be considered. There is a possibility in the Harwood area, depending on what line, if we can get the land acquisition done in those areas, then it could happen, but this is more of a Minnesota thing that's being more driven. Potential structure designs. Now, normally what we would want is going to be this single monopole design. It's preferred by all the co-owners as well as landowners really seem to enjoy the single pole instead of having 4 gigantic poles on their land, especially if they are farmers or agricultural. The site-specific alternatives that you're going to see on the right-hand side here, those would actually be 4-legged bases instead of a single. And they generally would be a 30-foot by 30-foot area that they would take up. Farmers don't tend to like those just because they are harder to farm through, especially with equipment nowadays. With that said, the goal would be to get to the preferred design and then only use those site-specific. Really, when we're talking about wetlands, any area that would be extremely difficult with the soil would probably be the ones that you'd be considering the most with those. These are some typical pre-construction activities. So we'd be looking at initial surveying, right-of-way, structure staking, foundation installation, assembling and set the structures, wire installation, and then cleanup. Our website did launch in June of 2025. We had our first round of open houses in June as well, and our second round in October. We have a hotline as well as our email hotline, phone hotline, and our website that you're able to communicate with us at any time. If there is any landowners or anybody that is wanting to get in contact with us, those would be the best ways to do so. And then there's going to be also a lot of engagement through both the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission as well as the North Dakota Public Service Commission too. So if there's any landowners or agencies that want to go that route to get their concerns heard, that is also a very good option for them. Other than that, any questions from the commission?
Questions for Craig? Commissioner Flacco?
Mr. Chairman and Craig, 2 questions. For a person such as myself who always gets a little confused by the size quotes about how many houses, because sometimes you report those and here's how many houses we can provide electricity for. What's the answer to that in general terms with no teenagers at home?
So I will say this, that I say many times when I'm at work. Number one, I'm not an engineer. I'm also not a delivery planner. So I don't think I would be able to answer it well. What I would want to double check though is just so I'm understanding. Are you asking the amount of houses that a 345 kilovolt line would be able to service?
Yes.
I do not know that.
Okay.
but I would also want to think about it potentially a little bit differently in the fact that it could be one, if it's a huge load, or it could also just be a whole town, depending on where the pole is going to, right? If you have let's say excuse me, a creamery or a milk factory, or whatever factory you have is a 200 megawatt load, well, then you could possibly say, well, this line is going to help support this much of that.
I get
but,
that,
yeah. So
I think with
don't
wind
have the
towers,
answer.
they kind of cite, you know, that
Yeah.
a one or two is like 600 houses kind of thing. And then, based upon your timeline and everything, is it safe to assume that you're not doing this specifically for Applied Digital or anything similar to that, because you're not opening until, what is it, 2028 after their?
Correct. Yeah, so we've had this question come up a couple of times, and I've actually talked to a couple of landowners out in Harwood about this too, because they've had that same question, right? And what I have said in the past already has been the MTEP 2024 report was actually approved in December of 2024. That was before the Applied Digital had even really started. First of all, even announced that there was going to possibly be a AI data center there. Two would actually be the way that MISO runs their models and the amount of data that they're putting into those models. They're really looking at 35 to 40 year outcomes in terms of, yep, well, here's the demand that we think we're going to need in 40 years. Here's a high, here's a low number. We're going to try and shoot in the middle. So they're not really looking at 2028 loads. They're looking at much further into the future. So that would be a good thing to think about.
Further questions? Commissioner Capitan?
It may be a dumb question, but looking at your design, your preferred design, a few years back, I was involved with some downed lines in North Dakota that were all ice, due to ice storms, and we had like 300 towers down. And those were the four-legged ones. Now, this is strictly a single pole. Has that been tested at all?
That's a really good question. So I'll answer first the ice question. There's actually a 300-year ice study that they've done on this line specifically, just to test, well, what's the worst possible outcome that they could expect most likely in the next 300 years to happen, right? And I would say that from a resiliency, if I can say the word, it doesn't matter. They are looking at that. I would also actually bring up a second actual real world example that we had on one of our 345 lines that is running from north to south, North Dakota, South Dakota. We had a line that actually had a tornado go right over the top of it, and we have actual photos of seeing I believe it's called a tornado path or tornado rut that went right over the top of the line. We had no outage during that tornado that happened in that area, and that line continued to work. So maybe not specifically to your ice event, but in a high wind event.
High wind, ice.
Yes, really any extreme weather event, there's a lot of tests and modeling that go into them, and a lot of engineering, so.
I know, like, way back in the 80s, even out at the airport, our light standards, they started doing that vibration, and they all went down. And I forget the terminology of it was, but there was a bridge out in Washington that happened to, that went down too. That would be my only concern is if they're being tested for, we have some extreme weather around here.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's one of the things that was identified through MISO as well is, North Dakota, Minnesota they're always going to be extreme weather. So the structures that they're wanting to build, especially on high voltage, needs to last. So.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Bettle?
Do you expect a lot of resistance from stakeholders for the event or for your construction?
I think probably depending on which stakeholder specifically. Landowners in general, I mean, we have our Ellendale to Jamestown project that is happening right now where we've already had I believe 75% land acquisition done. And in general, I would say there's been some pushback in that area just as another project comparison. In Cass County, I mean, we obviously have infrastructure that's been built over a long period of time, so I would imagine that landowners are probably a little more used to the idea of bigger structures like this going through the county. With that said, there's always the potential for pushback from landowners. I mean, I've said it to many people myself, but if I was a landowner too, I would also probably not want going through, but it's not, at the end of the day, it affects a lot of people. If this line weren't to go through, what are the effects is that going to cause in the future in terms of our grid? So yes, there's definitely a potential of that happening, but our goal is to obviously mitigate that too by making sure we are addressing concerns early and often and making sure we're getting out to the public as well as getting out to the PSC in a timely fashion too. So.
Just, Otter Tail's a great company with Mark Bring a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what you do in your
He was texting me the other day. He's like, "Hey, did you?"
You guys enjoy working with you. The legislature changed the permitting process last session and control of it, the Public Service Commission. And out west, there's been some real challenges with permitting and siting of transmission projects. And as you look to the future, I think you made a comment, Craig, how stable things have been for decades. You have generation of power located at various places geographically, get the transmission lines, which you're talking about, and the distribution lines to get it to your home or residence. The industry is going through massive change and demand for power is increasing. AI is part of that, but not the reason for the driving of the change. It's electrification outside, and AI has contributed to that. And so to get the power to where it needs to be, you need new transmission lines, new generation. And you mentioned MISO. I follow this every day in the role I have at Xcel Energy. MISO, 15 states, total megawatt demand right now is 88,437 megawatts in the 15 states to keep the lights on in every location. Coal is generating about 31,000 megawatts of that load. Natural gas is 35,000 megawatts. Nuclear is about 12,000 megawatts. Wind is around 5,000 megawatts right now at any given moment, and solar is about 35 megawatts. So as this energy mix changes and grows, a balance between coal and natural gas, which is dispatchable, and nuclear, this industry is going to continue to go through massive change, and it's a delicate process to work with landowners. And credit to you, and Otter Tail's got a great reputation in being very forthright and working with communities. And we appreciate the opportunity for you to talk about something that I know something about. So
don't worry, I've seen a few of your emails come across. I'm like, I better read that one. So anyway, I appreciate
you coming in. Say hi to Mark.
Thanks, guys.
Next up, we have MOU with Mapleton Township and transfer of the 32nd Avenue, 40th Street Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I have before you two separate MOUs with Mapleton Township. One is to relinquish control of our existing County Road 8 from County Road 15 to the 15th Street West, which is just on the east side of the diversion. And the other one is to take over said segments of road from the new County Road 8, a mile north of the existing County Road 8, which is where the new crossing over the diversion will be. And also 38th Street from I-94 down to the new County Road 8. And this is due to the impact of the diversion. Obviously, our County Road 8 currently, the crossing, there will not be a crossing over the diversion. Thus, us moving into taking that new 32nd Avenue over as the new County Road 8 and giving the old County Road 8 back to Mapleton Township, and then connecting in interstate with our new County Road 8, as well as the new alignment that goes over the diversion there at 38th Street. And we'll actually be doing improvements to those roads during the 2027 construction season, and that's been part of our 5-year plan now for a few years, and we'll be getting those up to County Road standards as well. Stand for questions.
Questions for Kyle? I have one.
Yes.
I had coffee this morning with the chair of Harmony Township.
Okay,
and we talked about County Road 20. I won't go
Yes.
into the details. But with this change, how does this information get corrected in Google Maps? And point being made, that Tom made this morning, is that when you're on County Road 20 going west and you come to 11, to Tar Road goes north and south, Google Maps says you can get to Highway 18 by keep going straight on dirt roads with
Right.
FedEx trucks and UPS trucks, because that's what the company policy is. Does this effort change the Google Map actual so that people know access roads? And so tonight we'll talk to Tom again at the township meeting.
Right.
about west
so
of-
we do our best to make sure everything is up to date with our GIS department, and Kay and Trevor do a great job of doing their best, but there also is shortfalls. I know County Road 12 out by Alice is another one that it shows it continuing. But there are things that Google sometimes is not as responsive as other things, but they do their best, and if you see things like that, obviously let me know, and we can work with the GIS
I'm
department.
assuming then that this would be reflective in that it's official government document.
Correct.
So that hopefully that the Google Meisters will take
Yes.
note and correct that. So
Yep.
I just made that name up, Google Meister.
It's probably where Tim got his shirt from.
All right, any other questions that are legitimate to the topic?
That took a weird turn right away.
Or is that did take her?
That's my only comment on that.
Is there a motion? Been moved by Commissioner Breitling, thank goodness, and seconded by Commissioner Capitan. Two most senior members know right from wrong. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the roll.
Commissioner Bettel,
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Capitan,
Aye.
Commissioner Flacco,
Aye.
Commissioner Breitling.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's learn how to shoot. Regional Outdoor Training Center, Sheriff Johnner.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thanks for allowing me a few minutes today to propose this idea to all of you. As some of you may or may not know, currently we are utilizing two different ranges. One is the indoor range on North University Drive in Fargo in about the 2800 block. And then and that's where we do our indoor shooting, and if we need to do outdoor shooting, we typically will go over to the Moorhead range and utilize their outdoor range area there. The outdoor range in Moorhead's been great partners to us, Clay County has been, but it is somewhat limited from time to time on when we can use it. And so over the last couple of years, I've been just kind of kicking around an idea of if there'd be any property on the Cass County side that we could potentially use that belong to the county to explore a potential outdoor range option. And so I reached out to Kyle, of course, and asked Kyle, and Kyle did some research, and he was able to find some property that is a little south and east of Durban that the county currently owns. And I was gonna use my laser pointer, but it doesn't show up on the TV. So I don't have it circled on here, but I'll go over to both sides so both of you guys kind of know the area. So the area is right here, and we'll zoom in on it in just a minute, but I just want you to get a relation as it sits in relation to Castleton. So this is Castleton up here, obviously the Castleton Airport, and then Mapleton over here. There is an interchange on the interstate right here, but you can't exit or enter the interstate. It just allows the frontage road to run along the south side of the interstate. But this road right here comes down to Durban. The county currently owns a little plot of land right here where they store some gravel and sand, correct? Yeah. And this piece of land would be right here. It's this little square right here. So I'll go over here and show those that are looking over here. This little property right here. Okay. Calvin, can you go to the next slide, please? So it kind of zooms in on it a little bit. Again, so that's Durban, and so one more time here, I'll just show you. This would be the piece of property right here. I think everyone was looking this way. So so, and I'll have Kyle explain, in a few minutes here what that property is used for, or, as I continue on here. But anyway, so this property, Kyle mentioned was available and then no one is currently using it. It belongs to the county. The idea or the concept for this outdoor range idea is to set up a range where we could do both rifle and handgun training out there. There's enough distance to do that. Obviously, as everyone in here is aware, when we do rifle training, it's better for us or more advantageous for us to have longer distances to shoot, because that's typically what a rifle is used for. But then also we'd be able to utilize handgun in there as well. In addition to that, eventually, if we're able to, with your guys' agreements, maybe move forward with this idea at this time, would be to move a structure out there where we could do some tactical type training, room clearing activities, a critical incident response, and different tactics like that, barricade subjects, and a lot of things that we sometimes encounter now. We don't really have the best places to train and work through those types of scenarios. We do utilize Bonanzaville right now to do some of that, but this would allow us to encompass all that training in one area. So right now, literally what I'm looking for from you guys is a discussion on the property, because it belongs to the county, and potentially being able to maybe move forward with the concept to start researching what other types of things we'd have to do to develop this into a range. Now, I'm talking with Kyle. He did mention, of course, we would have to work around their schedules, and with the approval of you, he did mention that they could potentially help us develop the property into a range. So as we do this, I realize that there's not a lot of money to potentially, move this concept forward right now with our tax caps and stuff. So this would be something I think that we could develop over a few years with the help of our county road department partners. Maybe there wouldn't be too much investment in getting it initially started. And as we move forward, of making sure that we're fiscally responsible in developing it. Even with the structure that I was thinking about utilizing for tactics, maybe we can find an older style house that could be moved onto the property, which would work perfect for our tactical considerations. So that's the idea right now, but the property does belong to the county. I didn't know if you guys had any other utilizations for it, if it was something you would entertain, and if you did, I guess the next step forward, if you said, yeah, go ahead and experiment with what you think it might turn into, and put some ideas together for the concept. My next steps would be tonight at the township meeting. I'd certainly want to visit with the adjacent townships and the actual township that it's in to make sure that our township partners would be on board with this. And then as any residences in that area, that they were comfortable with what we were doing, because we want to be good partners to all of our rural residents and make sure that they'd be on board with it, because there's going to be some noise from doing the firearms training. When we went out there and drove that area, as you see that property to the south there, that's not a residence, that's just a grove of trees with a building. So there aren't a lot of residences in that area. That was one thing we took into consideration as we drove around, and thought this might be a good area to put this. And so I guess at that, I would open it up for you guys to questions maybe on the property, because if you're not willing to allow us to experiment with the property, then there's no use in moving forward. So,
Commissioner Gatto?
What is the property currently being utilized for?
Currently, it's being used for nothing. It is a flood buyout lot after the 97 flood. It was purchased with FEMA dollars, so we would have to work around. Now Jesse's got a vision of buildings and everything else, which is against the rules, per the FEMA standards. So we would have to work around that part of it. Not sure, we never really worked with that type of thing. I know that they're agreeable to certain things if you turn it into a park or something else of that nature. This is a slightly different caveat, I guess. But in general, it's not being used for anything. It's vacant. there's a lot of trash out there. We don't mow it. It's just kind of there, more or less.
Do we have a copy of an agreement with FEMA?
We should, yeah.
I was not aware of the FEMA agreement. I'm gonna assume, but I mean, obviously we'd want to look at that the agreement would, that no one can reside on the property.
Well, I don't know if those agreements, in my experience with other agencies in the federal government, you don't have perpetual. Typically 20 years is a common number, at least from some other U.S. Department of Commerce, for example. Now, again, two different agencies, but I'd be surprised if it was forever. But it is? Stand corrected.
But you can always ask for variances to do things like that. But
They're asked now, it might take 3 years to get there.
No, the FEMA also said that you can't get money for improving a private golf course, but they did it. They did it with Oxbow. That's a private golf course.
Other comments, questions?
I did want to mention, I have heard that
Commissioner Brightling?
4-H Club has done some shooting out there with their marksman club as well. So there has been people that have used it for that type of thing. It's like a mile, less than a mile.
Yeah, it's about a mile from that, well, as you can see from that intersection there, it'd be a half mile to the east, but Durban jogs up to the north. There is a house down there to the south, so.
Are there any residents of Durban?
Yep, there are a couple people that reside out there.
You're almost a mile east and a mile north of Durban.
So there, yep, so there is a resident, so this right here, as I was mentioning, so this is obviously again a plot of land right here. This right here is just grove of trees, no one lives in here. There's people that reside here, there's people that reside here. There's residents here, there's residents here, and then one that's inside Durban actually.
Michael?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to request developing a concept and vision for a regional training center and range on property owned by the county southeast of Durban, identified in the presentation, and to bring those plans to a future meeting for review and possible approval.
Moved and seconded, discussion? You're leaning forward.
Nope.
Hearing no other discussion, we'll take the roll.
Commissioner Brightling.
Yes.
Commissioner Vettel.
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Capitan.
Aye.
Commissioner Flacco.
Aye.
Thank you.
I will bring the,
Five,
I'll
approved
put,
vouchers.
bring the
Commissioner
concept forward to you then.
Vouchers and I move to approve.
Second? Second. Discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the roll.
Commissioner Flacco. Commissioner Brightling.
Yes.
Commissioner Vettel.
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg. Commissioner Capitan.
2026 committee assignments, chair and vice chair. Has everyone had a chance to review the document?
I have, and I have no objection to.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing, and I mentioned it earlier, should we have a alternate on the building committee?
Alternate on what?
You have 2 members and no alternates.
You, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Flacco, you certainly could. You know, I guess the best answer I have is that we've had 2 members on the building committee as long as I've been with the county, but you could certainly appoint an alternate if you'd like.
And we'd still have 2 members.
Yeah.
And the proposed slate?
Move to amend and,
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have not seen this old slate. I know we went through it, but. Is it in here?
For the planning discussion, it mirrors everything that was discussed. And then
Yeah.
I did follow up with Commissioner Vettel.
I would move to amend that to be appointed by the chair.
Discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries. Now is there a motion to accept as planned for 2026?
So moved.
Captain moves.
Second.
Breitling seconds. Any discussion? And then we'll take the roll.
Commissioner Grinberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Capitan.
Aye.
Commissioner Breitling. Commissioner Bettel.
Aye.
Commissioner Flacco.
Wilson, you want to lead us off committee reports?
Mr. Chair, I can do that. I wanted to make sure that all of you are aware of the County Commissioners Summit planned for December 8th and 9th in Bismarck. I think there've been some information, emails directly from the Association of Commissioners on that. I don't plan to attend unless your direction, but you should have received information on that. I think that was done for the first time last year, a couple of years ago, and my understanding was the feedback was positive. And certainly, if you need any help with registration or housing, let us know, and we'll be happy to help you out with that. As all of you are aware, we have the semi-annual Township Officers Meeting tonight at 7 o'clock in Castleton. Typically, those are kind of spring and fall. This one is a little later into the fall/winter. Might be a good adjustment to get more folks who would otherwise be tied up with harvest. Maybe they're free. Tomorrow night, we have the community meeting in Mapleton from 3 to 5 tomorrow afternoon. Format of that is going to be very similar to the meeting we had a couple of weeks ago down in Kindred. I think we had good turnout there, good feedback, and look forward to your participation if you are able to attend. Finally, I'm going to be out of town end of this week at a NACO board meeting, quarterly meeting, and should be plenty of good information there that I would come back with next week. Obviously, the tracking of federal activities that pertain to counties, there's probably plenty to talk about. Happy to answer any questions, and that concludes my report.
Question, like Castleton, they had it at City Hall last time. Before it's always been at the Governor's Inn. Where is it tonight?
This is a different location. The address is on the meeting invite. Give me just a moment, I can give that to you. I do believe it is a local church. The address is 602 2nd Street North in Castleton. 602 2nd Street North.
And the one in Mapleton?
The one in Mapleton is at the Mapleton Community Center, 651 2nd Street in Mapleton. 651 2nd Street, Mapleton.
Mr. Breitling. No report. Commissioner Bettel. No report. Police attorney.
The hiring saga for attorneys continues. The woman who was supposed to start 2 days from now withdrew her acceptance of the offer on Friday evening. So that's the bad news. The good news is we have a few more applicants who are licensed, so we'll be setting up interviews as quickly as possible. We are also currently in the hiring process for an office support specialist. We're down to a couple of decisions to make, but we should have a good person hired in that position not too long from now. Axon Justice continues to go very well. We've had meetings with all of our law enforcement agency partners, and slowly but surely the outliers are coming on board, but the three major
Fargo Police Department, West Fargo Police Department, and Cass County Sheriff are already fully on board, and it's working very nicely for my staff. The National District Attorneys Association has been hosting some hour-long web calls for elected state's attorneys. So I sat in on one of those today, and the topic fittingly was caseloads and how they're just increasingly overwhelming for prosecutors' offices with the advent of body cam and different evidence, digital evidence. The sheer volume, I think, is crippling a lot of the state's attorneys' offices across the nation, so it's not just us. That's my report.
Nothing to report.
I have nothing to report.
Finance?
I'd just like to let everyone know that the property tax statements will be going out the second Friday in December, so not this Friday, but next Friday. We're hoping to get them posted on the web within the next few days.
Mine better be $1,600 less.
Okay. I'd just like to add, appreciate all the effort and the work that goes into these community meetings. Really enjoyed the Kindred meeting. Good dialogue. We had 4 or 5 legislators that also were part of that. I expect we'll have a contingent of legislators tomorrow night as well in Mapleton. So again, I appreciate department heads and all the effort that goes into planning these events. I think they're important. I did share a personal story from my remarks in Kindred. Given that I am from Mapleton, I'm sure I'll share 1 or 2 Mapleton stories. Go Falcons. You would know that, Commissioner, right? So looking forward to that. So with that, next, anybody in the audience like to provide public comment or online? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, motion carries. We're adjourned.